This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get down to Tom's Watch Bar in Minneapolis tonight at 6:30 to join the Power Trips Meat Sauce Lucky for a KFAN Wolves watch party. We'll have Timberwolves Nets alive on the big screens, delicious food, drinks, and your chance to secure exclusive KFAN swag and to qualify for Wolves season finale tickets. Get all the details now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
San Antonio Garzi on Radio Row, in for Barreiro today and tomorrow. Gophers Athletic Director Mark Coyle is going to join at 5:30. Chris Hine from the Star Tribune. We'll talk Wolves. He's in Brooklyn following the club. They've got a game tonight on the Fan against the Nets, as I think they're in the 6th spot for the first time in like 2 months. They may have slid back to the 7th, but they are continuing to battle to stay out of the play-in. We'll talk to Chris Hine about that. Twins are in the bottom of the 3rd, home opener, 2 outs, 1 on right now. They're tied at 2 with Houston. They led 2-0. Joe Ryan gave up a couple of dongs in the 2nd, and so we are knotted up at 2. Your first-place Minnesota Twins at 2-4 on a 2-game win streak after starting 0-4 to this season, which started basically in the snow. It's continuing in the snow. Kudos to anybody that did the Twins breakfast on the plaza today. You are hardier than I. One thing that we do talk to Mark Coyle about that I want to spend a couple of minutes on now, the news that Gopher Sports made today about Williams Arena. And if you're just getting caught up, it's not what you would expect. It's not an announcement of renovations. It's not an announcement that they're tearing it down and building a new one. It's not an announcement that they're building a new one on a different site and just going to play in the barn for a couple more years and then move across the street maybe to a plot of land somewhere behind Athletes Village or 3M Arena at Mariucci. No, what the announcement is today is that they're going to sell the place, at least sell the naming rights to the place. And this really shouldn't be news to anybody. I get why it's a big announcement, and I get the purpose of getting that announcement out there, mostly to remind people that you've heard me, if you've listened to the first hour of the show, heard Matt Margenthaler from Minnesota State Mankato. Yeah, I'm Radio Row since about 9 a.m. this morning. Probably talked to half a dozen coaches that we'll use sporadically throughout the weekend. We'll put together a best of like we usually do leading up into the games and on Sunday for Sunday sermons, everything that comes with that. The number one thing that everybody's talking about right now is the money that's going to go to these players probably starting this summer. That's what everybody's planning for, the $20.5 million. The house settlement, you've probably heard it a million times. Your eyes have probably glazed over. I know mine have, but it's the reality. If you walk these hallways in the convention center that we're in San Antonio, everybody's talking about money. That's what they've been doing for the last couple of years, even more so than they used to when they were still talking about money. It was just money for something different, facilities, new buildings, coaching salaries, whatever. Now it's about money for the players. And where's that money going to come from? And the one place that really doesn't have a name on it in a corporate sense is Williams Arena. So it's actually a surprise that it's taken this long, I guess. They've obviously had TCF Bank, now Huntington Bank on the football stadium for a while. A handful of years ago, they put 3M on Mariucci. There was outrage about that by some people. Made no sense to me. That's the business that they're in now. And as we talk about with Mark Coyle, it hasn't impacted anybody's enjoyment of Gopher hockey at that arena the last couple of seasons when they've been basically top 5 in the country the entire time. So that's what they're doing. That's the good news, that they are finally going to try to find somebody to put their name on that building. They are partnering with something called Independent Sports and Entertainment. It's a firm that can help them identify the company that wants to do it, can help negotiate that, I suppose. And then in the next couple of years, there'll be a new arena name on Williams Arena. If I had something to give away, I would do some type of quiz on who the building is named after. Brett Blakemore, I know that you're not one of us, But do you know who Williams Arena is named after?
Not Ted, is it?
Ted Williams? No, it's not the former Boston Red Sox, the last guy to hit 400. No, it's not Ted Williams.
No, Robin?
Not Robin Williams, the great comedian. It is not Robin Williams. The Williams Arena is not even named for a basketball coach or anybody that is affiliated with the basketball program. And I honestly didn't know that as someone who grew up here going to the Barn in the last generation that really loves the place. It's named after a football coach, and it was named after him in like the 1950s. So that's the Williams Arena. Henry Williams, I think is his name.
John Williams is a good one.
John Williams, yeah. He was an old football coach too, I think at Michigan State. But so people, they're obviously he was a football coach, probably won some national titles, but nobody knows that. Like a small percentage of people actually knew who Williams Arena was named after. And when you find out that it has nothing to do with anything basketball related, it makes sense that we're not doing anything sacrilegious here by putting a corporate name on this bid. So we'll see where that ends up. Obviously, you need money wherever you can. This is like the one last big thing that you have. They renamed the pavilion after Joel Maturi. There was a donation, I think, into that. I still think you could sell that as well if you wanted to. The adjacent building to Williams. But this is a no-brainer. This should come with no controversy. To me, the only controversy that comes out of it is there's no doubt, and this kind of jumped the question that I had for Mark, because in the last couple of weeks, he's been adamant about the place that they play basketball games at Williams, and that it's a historic venue, and when it's full, nobody cares about it. Brett, you've known me long enough. We've talked about this a million times. It's my belief that they need to do something with it, and I'm open to whatever. Renovate, build new, do whatever you want, but it can't just be this is our building and this is where we play. But it kind of sounds like that's where it's heading, and he's been pretty adamant about that the last couple of weeks, going back to the Niko Medved opening press conference, and he'll repeat the same thing coming up at 5:30. The old line of nobody cares when the barn is full, that it's from 1928 and that it's tough to get around and that the seats aren't very comfortable and you have to go to the bathroom in troughs in the men's bathroom. I think women's actually have stalls. Can't confirm it. Never been in there, but I'll take people's word for it.
Good to know.
But that to me is kind of the sub-headline of the day, that they're selling naming rights to Williams Arena, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Probably overdue, but good that they're doing it now because you have to find money wherever you can find money. The buzzkill, if you're in the new arena camp like I am, is that that's definitely paused. And we talked a year ago, I think Mark and I did, about the firm that they hired for that, the engineering firm, to start to put together some estimates for remodel versus rebuild versus build new, all the different options. That's absolutely been paused. And for how long, we don't know. Coyle's going to say in the interview that he can say with certainty they're not going to do anything for the next 2-3 years in terms of a rebuild. He's not going to make that announcement. And to me, that is unfortunate. Hopefully they can find a way, as Nico said, to make it a little bit nicer, to spruce up some things. I don't know what they can do, but I understand why they can't do it right at the moment, or they don't think they can do it right at the moment, because they're still trying to figure out this revenue piece, which is going to be a big piece in terms of paying the players and everything that comes with that. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now that might make a new arena or a remodel a little bit untenable. But I think that's, to me, the sub-theme from the last couple of weeks. That's a change from a year or so ago when it seemed like there was a lot of momentum to do something with the arena, to rebuild it, remodel it, whatever you want to say, but to address it, to address the situation. It seems like that is on hiatus, at least. I think pause is the word that they're going to use. And, that to me is, the unfortunate part of the news today, which is good in that they're going to find a way to maximize revenue there, which they're absolutely going to need. But I still think at some point there does need to be a conversation about what the future of the building holds, because even when it is full, as great as it is, I'm about the fan experience, and I'm there probably more than anybody. And I love the place. Everybody knows it. I would still love to see that addressed in the next couple of years somehow, some way. Wild have a 20-year-old building. They're asking the city of St. Paul for some money to try to put a bunch of new things in it. The Timberwolves, when their ownership bit comes to fruition, which is probably going to be in the next couple of months, one of the first things they're going to do is start talking about a new arena. Target Center, I think, opened in 1990. Williams Arena, 1928, remodeled in the 90s. So we can try it. We can do it, and I'm glad they're putting the name on it. I would still like to see that addressed at some point. But a lot of good stuff coming up with Mark Coyle at 5:30. He's always pretty good in our conversations, especially the longer form ones. And I think people are going to get a lot out of it when it comes to the women's basketball program, the men's basketball program, Williams Arena, college sports in general. We address all of that, but wanted to update people on the news today that they are going to sell naming rights on the barn, which is a good deal. Come back, we'll pivot to some Wolves stuff, maybe touch on some Twins as well. We've got Chris Hine, who's tracking the Timberwolves in Brooklyn. We'll get to him at the bottom of the hour.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Minneapolis, get ready for Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers. Join them on April 10th at the Orpheum Theater for an epic night of music and fun. Grab your tickets now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Guardsy in for Barreiro today, the 651 Carpets Plus studio in San Antonio. Davey, do you think people understand that bit, Brett, or do I need to explain it to everybody?
I'd run through it one more time.
Yeah, it's Trent Tucker. It's in the zone. Just how he says San Antonio with Dave Sinekin is good. So whenever we say San Antonio, we have to say San Antonio Davey. I actually got tweeted today by the city of San Antonio because I took a picture of the Riverwalk on my walk over here and did the obligatory caption, San Antonio Davey. And they welcomed me here. It was very nice. I also got the obligatory, too bad it's not in Indy, because everybody knows that's my bit at this point. But that's where we are today. We're here for Westwood One's Radio Row, year 12, I think, for me. And we're presented this next couple of days in part by Indeed. You can stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed-sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. You can start at Indeed.com/credit. Chris Hine from the Star Tribune is going to join about 10 minutes from now. We'll talk Wolves. He's in Brooklyn there. Mark Coyle will join at 5:30. Brett Blakemore's got the top five at 5 as well. It's Wolves and Nets coming up a little bit later tonight. And the Wolves are finally, I think, in a decent playoff spot as they continue to fight with about 4 teams. Memphis is plummeting. Golden State playing well. Clippers kind of meandering. Wolves in a pretty good spot. If they take care of business in the last 6 games, they should be in the top 6. That's a couple of things we'll talk about with Chris Hine about 10 minutes from now. Quick Vikings nugget, because I've been down here, like I said, since about 8:30 or 9 this morning, and we've got a bunch of college kids that are helping us out to kind of help wrangle the guests. And of the 4 or 5 that I've talked to, 2 of them have wanted to ask me about Aaron Rodgers, Brett Blakemore. And I've been a little bit out of pocket. I've been in like 7 states in the last 2 weeks. To quote Chad Hartman, don't know exactly what city I'm in at any given point, tracking the women in the WBIT and family vacation and then coming back down here. I know that Rodgers put out a big video, or a video was put out of Aaron Rodgers. I can't imagine it was a coincidence or done against his consent that he was throwing some passes with a future, perhaps Pittsburgh Steelers teammate over the weekend. But the kids, Brett, all want to know if Aaron Rodgers is coming to Minnesota. And one of them was adamant that he still thinks it's happening. And I know that's been a big sentiment from, I think, a large swath of people, maybe not that cover the team, but they're not ready to completely throw cold water on the Aaron Rodgers bit. I think it's done. I think it's over. I think it should be over. I think it was worth investigating. I understand why they would have had long conversations about it. KOC earlier this week, I think, even confirmed some of those conversations at the owners' meeting. But did I miss something major where there was this whole nother round of rumors? Because I can't believe how much it's still coming up here, really a week or so after I think we had pretty good resolution from all the national reporters and all the local reporters that were covering the story, saying that the Vikings did have conversations about Rodgers, but they're prepared to move forward with JJ. Have I missed anything seismic? You've been working basically 24/7
Correct.
the last 2 weeks.
Well, here's the main thing for me is that Kwesi in his presser, I don't know, last week, a week and a half ago, it's all blurring together these days, basically was straight up asked, will you close the door on Aaron Rodgers? Like, is this done? And he waffled on it a little bit. He's like, well, we can't say anything's 100%, then never say never, but we're happy with where we're going. To me, it serves no purpose if JJ is going to be your guy to just, why not just say, he's our guy, he's our quarterback, we're moving forward, and that's that. He didn't. And then also on top of that, the silence, to me, every day that we go by without Rodgers signing with the Steelers breathes more life into this Vikings thing. Every day that we go on where he hasn't made a decision, the meter of Rodgers likely to Minnesota goes up a notch every time. So, and especially if we get to the draft, you kidding me? And he still hasn't signed with anybody. That's why I think it's steaming up, because the lack of anything that we've gotten. To me, that's my reason. Yeah.
Now, Kwesi, you're right. Kwesi does. He's of the Corey Cove school in that nothing is 100% and nothing is 0%. Or is it just 100% for Sludgy? I can't remember. Nothing can be 100%. And I get that. I get the logic behind it. I get that's his background. He's never going to say anything definitive about anything because things can change. Absolutely, things can change. Maybe they get a bad report on McCarthy's knee. Maybe something pops up that they're not thrilled about. Maybe they have another threshold or benchmark here in the next couple of weeks that they have to check off for his recovery to be going on as scheduled. There's no doubt, and I've been convinced of this really since the jump on Rodgers when he didn't sign somewhere immediately, that he's waiting for the Vikings. I think it's pretty obvious he would love to play here. Why wouldn't he? You've got Justin Jefferson. You've got a great quarterback mind. I'm sure Rodgers is thinking in his mind, look at what this dude did with Sam Darnold. Look at what this dude did with Josh Dobbs in a short sample size. Like, he knows quarterback play. He's highly respected. He's one of the hip now with it and wow, low BMI, great smile, great personality, culture of collaboration, offensive quarterback guru minds. So I'm sure he's waiting for the Vikings. I think he does want one more chance at this thing, and there's no rush for Rodgers to do anything because even though it only seems like right now Pittsburgh is his only option, we know that things change throughout the offseason. They certainly change once the season starts. He doesn't have to be desperate. He can just say, I'm going to stay in shape. I'm going to throw on the side at a local high school. I'm going to, call random team receivers that I might want to play for or might be rumored to play for like he did with Pittsburgh, and I'm going to throw them some passes, and we'll see what happens. He doesn't have to jump at any situation. I think he can afford to be a little bit choosy because he also can just decide he doesn't want to play. So he could say, I want to play for the Vikings or I don't want to play. And we know that it takes one training camp injury. We've seen it in this town. Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt while we're at the state fair in a late August practice, and the next thing you know, the Vikings are trading with the Eagles for Sam Bradford. Like, these things do happen, so I don't think there's any reason for him to rush. If he's not 100% on board with Pittsburgh and he still wants to hold out hope for Minnesota or maybe a team that we're not even thinking of, to me there's no reason. That silence doesn't bother me as much, Brett, as it does you, that we don't have resolution, because he's not a guy that needs to go to mini camp as much. He's not a guy that needs to go to OTAs. He doesn't even really need to go to training camp. Now, would I recommend it with a new team? Probably, but he's a smart enough dude that he can pick up enough on the fly and pretty quickly to get himself ready to go for whatever team he plays for. So I just think the only way that the Vikings change this thing and he does end up becoming a Viking is if something unseen or unforeseen happens with J.J. McCarthy, because I do think everything is pointing to them giving him the ball for whatever, looking at the dates right now, OTAs on May 27th. I think they've got their offseason bit in April just after that. Mini camp first week and second week of May, rookie mini camp, which you wouldn't be a part of. But I just think, to me, that's what I was explaining to the college kids here. I think it's over. Is it impossible? No, of course it's not impossible, but I just think it's over.
I hope you're right. And that's not even me from like a vengeful, like green and gold person. Like, I genuinely just hope you're right for all parties involved, for mine and yours as well. So I think JJ will be good, but I don't want to see Rodgers in purple. Just don't.
Well, for us, it's unbelievable. And that's the other part of the conversation. The radio guy loves it. The Vikings fan doesn't love it quite so much. But those are two, the angel and the devil on respective shoulders. The 42-year-old Vikings fan who just wants a little bit of stability at the quarterback spot for like the second time in my entire life. I'm cool with riding out the JJ thing and seeing where it goes. The person that wants to hit our AQH bonuses and make sure that everybody's making the KFAN channel of the iHeartRadio app one of the presets and just hammering it there from minicamp to training camp to hopefully a long regular season run and maybe postseason run with Aaron Rodgers, I would take that too, but those are the competing forces there. Another team I'd love to have a postseason run because it's good for business, and I'm a Timberwolves super fan. The Wolves, they're back in action tonight. Chris Hine from the Star Tribune is tracking them. We'll get his thoughts on the epic game in Denver from a couple of nights ago and what the Wolves need to do in the final six to get into the top six and stay in the top six and avoid the play-in. Chris Hine from Brooklyn when we come back.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Join Muss and Miller Lite at Little Village Pub in White Bear Lake today from 5 to 7. Stop by for your final chance to win a spot in the Vikings Foundation Golf Tournament and load up on sweet Miller Lite golf gear. Full details now, KFAN.com, keyword golf.
Welcome back to San Antonio. Guardsy here, Westwood One Radio Row. Final Four coverage. Been a lot of college basketball today. Will be a lot of college basketball tomorrow. Wanted to pivot a little bit, localize some things, as well as talk about the professional team. The Wolves back in action tonight against Brooklyn. They are on the road. They've won 3 in a row, including an epic game in Denver. A guy who's in Brooklyn was in Denver on this 3-game win streak, as the Wolves are back in the 6th spot for the first time in literally 2 months. I think I saw Alan Horton tweet today. Is Chris Hine. He covers the Wolves for the Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. He's on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline now. Chris, thanks for the time on somewhat short notice. Appreciated, especially with the game just a couple of hours from now. I know Anthony Edwards said that was the best game he thought he may have ever been a part of the other night against Denver. I won't ask you to give me your top 5 of all time, but you've been in the building for some pretty good ones, including in that building in Denver. Game 7 comes to mind. Take us inside what the tension was like and the back and forth for you.
Yeah, it was, I think in terms of regular season games that I've covered in 7 years on the beat, I think that was the craziest regular season game I've covered. I wasn't there the day of the Kyle Anderson, Rudy Gobert punch and Jaden McDaniels breaking his hand on the wall. I actually got stuck in Austin, Texas from their game the day before. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I think that probably would have been the top one.
That was wild.
But that was wild. And then the Jersey Tuck game, I think Tuesday night replaced the Jersey Tuck game, the Chris Paul, Oklahoma City Jersey Tuck game from like 2019.
Yep.
And just covering the weirdness of that particular game. It was, I mean, listen, Tuesday night had, you know, to quote Stefan from SNL, it had everything. You know, it had brilliant basketball. It had bad basketball. It had, you know, swings of emotion, just, you know, haymakers back and forth. You think you're going to win 1 minute, you think you're going to lose, then they win it again. I've never really covered a game that probably had that many swings of emotion. And you know, I would have loved to have seen like the win probability metrics at various points throughout that night, because it had to have been crazy.
Well, to also quote Stefan, the NBA's hottest star right now is Joker. Unbelievable, right? I mean, you're in the locker room after every game. You've been in locker rooms your whole career. I don't know, and I know a lot of you guys wrote on this topic just how the Timberwolves guys, I mean, they were happy they won. Obviously, it's a big win. They clearly loved playing Denver. I know, you know, the Wolves had some guys out with Dante and Nas. Obviously, they had Murray out, and I think one other player as well. And so, but they were just like in awe of what that dude did. That's pretty rare, right? To have an opposing team just make it about the game, of course, but they couldn't believe what they were having to go up against. That's pretty rare, right?
And, you know, and for all the times that this team has played Jokic, especially the last 3 seasons with 2 playoff series in there, I've never really heard them talk about Jokic in that way. Like there's always been like a healthy amount of respect, right? Yep. But to just see kind of the awe on their faces and like almost like the disbelief on Ant's face or Julius Randle's face and just the way they talked about him, it was unlike anything that they had ever said or experienced in, you know, 24 matchups against Jokic the last 3 seasons. And yeah, I think Tuesday night was interesting because Murray and Porter being out forced Jokic to essentially score all night, which he doesn't always want to do. So in a weird way, it was just kind of the stars aligning for him, where it's like, hey, if we're going to win tonight, I have to have a big night scoring. And the Wolves just, you know, down Naz Reid, who was, you know, another player that you could put on Jokic for a couple of minutes and help defend him. But they just had no answer for him. And anytime he got in the post, you know, and I think from those little turnarounds he takes with one hand, anytime those miss, I'm stunned. It's almost like shocking when he takes that little 5-footer turnaround and he doesn't hit it.
Yep.
It's amazing the skill level and just the consistency and just ability he has. It's fun to watch in person. It really is.
One more on Jokic fan line before we actually talk about the Wolves part of it. Do you think, not that this even matters, but this does get, you know, I guess it does matter because we're talking about history. He's won 3 MVPs, and we're getting into that debate now of, is it still SGA's MVP? Is it just his turn? Oklahoma City's been so good. He's been so prolific. And meanwhile, you know, Jokic is still probably the best player in the world. We're all old enough to remember when Michael Jordan didn't win it every single year. There was a Charles Barkley. There was a Karl Malone. It's just kind of how it goes. Do you think, though, this late push by him and this push by them changes that conversation at all? Because really for the last 2 months, it seems like SGA had this thing wrapped up for the MVP.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be enough momentum just in how these things go. It always seems like, to your point, there's a narrative behind who wins MVP every year, and voters, I think, sometimes get a little fatigued voting for the same guy, which is why, you know, maybe Jokic didn't win his 3rd when Embiid won his a couple of years ago. But I just think that fatigue just sets in with voters. I voted once upon a time myself. I gave it up after one season. But if I was voting this year, I'd go with Jokic because I just think it's a marvel to watch him on a night in, night out basis.
Chris Hine, Star Tribune beat writer for the Wolves, joining me from Brooklyn. The Wolves take on the Nets tonight, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first tip right here on the Fan. Timberwolves are in the 6th spot right now. Do you schedule watch? Do you standings watch? Or are you just going to wake up or wait for Sunday night? I think April 14th. I think the Wolves play Utah the last Sunday of the regular season, and then that's when you'll figure out what's going to happen, because you just look at, you know, really from 3 to 7 or 8. I guess it's 8 now. it's madness and it's chaos, and I'm sure there's a million different tiebreakers. Like, how consumed have you been with all of that?
I've consumed a lot because my future travel plans depend on this.
But you're not going to know until Sunday, right? We're not going to know until that Sunday night.
Right, exactly. Even though we're not going to know until Sunday night, I'm still kind of watching it and thinking in my mind, like, all right, well, they're the 6th now, and they play Denver, so I might spend more time in Denver, and my least favorite airport in the country at Denver International. LA's in play. Houston's in play. It's like, and even for that week, the play-in week, you're like, well, I could end up going to Los Angeles or San Francisco or Memphis at the last minute, and it's crazy, but like from our perspective, but like a lot of your life and the way that you live your life and plan for it is so uncertain. The next several weeks, you could be done by the middle of April, or if they make a run, you could be working through to the end of May potentially, just like last season. So it's that time of year where you don't make any travel plans, you don't make any commitments.
Right.
You tell people you can hang out with them when you can. You don't make any promises because you're kind of beholden to the schedule and how well the team you do, how the team you cover does in the playoffs.
So looking at the schedules, and first looking at the standings, 5, 6, 7, 8. Golden State, Minnesota, the Clippers, and the Grizzlies all have 44 victories, and Golden State has one fewer game played. That's why I think they're in the 5. Everybody else, Timberwolves, Clippers, and Grizzlies, 44 and 32. I have done the schedule checks of a couple of them. The Wolves, you look at their last 6. I mean, I think, Chris, worst case, they should be 4 and 2. You look at who Golden State has, including, I think, the Lakers tonight or tomorrow. Like, Memphis is in this mix. The Wolves have them with Memphis. It's a road game here coming up. Like, I feel like, I don't know how much you've gone in on the other schedules, but I feel like with the Wolves schedule, and this is a big if they just handle the games they're supposed to, at minimum, they should be in a pretty good spot to avoid the play-in. How have you seen it when you compare schedules, or do you even bother with that because the NBA is so weird and crazy right now?
I think it's both. I think I try not to assume too much. I have peeked at the schedules of various teams. I think Golden State also plays Denver.
Yep.
And I think they also play the Clippers on the last day of the season, which could end up being a very consequential game. So Golden State has an interesting schedule that's a little tricky from here on out. I think the Clippers play Houston once here coming up, along with that matchup against Golden State. And I forget what Memphis' schedule looked like, but it's possible for the Wolves to just run the table here with their schedule.
Right.
Milwaukee. You look at the 2 toughest games left. Milwaukee and Memphis are the 2 toughest ones left. Dame's hurt, and Memphis is in kind of a free fall right now. So, it is possible for this team to run the table. They should beat Brooklyn twice here. Philadelphia, no Embiid, no Maxey. They're trying to tank to keep their draft pick this year, and then you got Utah in the last game of the season, who has no interest in really winning any games at all. So it is possible to run the table, and if they do that, that's the only way you can really guarantee that they're going to get the 6th seed, because they will have passed Memphis at that point. And again, you have that Clippers Warriors game. Hard to do, and we know that this team has flaws of beating teams that it should. It's one of the fatal flaws of this team and why they're not higher in the standings, but it is there for them. The path is there for all their struggles this year. The path to staying out of that play-in is there, and it's as long as they play good basketball, take care of business, they should be there.
And we've been saying that, unfortunately, for 2 months, right? If they just handle even coming out of the All-Star break, they had the big meeting, they had the big run, and then all of a sudden they drop a couple of games at home that they shouldn't drop, and that's why you're in the mix. To be fair, every team's kind of had that. I'll be interested to see how Golden State finishes with those 3 tough games. Memphis has Miami and Detroit on the road tonight and Saturday. Then they've got Charlotte, who's no good, before the game against the Wolves at home a week from tonight. I want to talk about the hero from the other night, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Awesome. You guys have done a great job, and I think he's done a great job of talking about, he's been pretty open about just not knowing if he was going to be good enough or have the opportunity to stick, and what a great spot Minnesota has been for him. And it's still amazing that the Wolves trade D'Lo and get Mike Conley, Nickeil, and some draft picks. That's pretty good general managing and presidenting of basketball operations by Tim Conley. But we always talk about Naz, and can they keep Naz, and he's going to have a bigger contract here after he opts out. What's the future for Nikhil here? Because he's clearly a guy that they love having, that loves being here, but he's also a guy that's probably going to outperform any type of contract that certainly the one he's on now, that we maybe couldn't have seen a year or two from now. So I know we just talked about guessing about everything for the next week, but what do you think the future is for Nikhil? Is there one for him here in Minnesota potentially?
I think there can be, but I think there's a lot that has to happen for Nikhil to end up here after this year. You have to see what the market looks like. Is he going to get the full mid-level, which, a lot of national reporters have been speculating that he's a guy who can and likely will earn the full mid-level exception. You have to see what happens with Julius Randle's opt-in potential next year. Does he opt in? Does he not? Does he, do what Rudy does? Maybe does the team offer him like a longer-term deal, but for lower annual value than what he's going to make next year? What is Naz Reid going to command? Because Naz Reid is, I think, if not number one, very high on the priority list for the Timberwolves this offseason, is making sure that Naz Reid is here long term. And then I think you see where you're at relative to the second apron, what the tax situation is, how much can you pay Nikhil, how much is he willing to, I don't want to say take a discount, but you may not have the full mid-level money if you want to stay under the second apron at that point, just the way the numbers may end up working out. So there's a lot of dominoes that have to fall. You never say never, but I do think a lot has to line up, just given their priorities and the contract situations of Naz Reid and Julius Randle as well play into that.
The ownership stuff. Glenn Taylor, it was announced or reported or I guess revealed that he's not going to contest it. I don't know what took so long, Chris, frankly, because I thought the whole point of the arbitration, whatever it was the three judges were vetted out completely. They each got to pick a side. There was going to be one that was supposedly neutral. They set the whole thing up to make sure that this is the decision, this is done. Whatever comes out of it, this is how we're going to rule. So was there any surprise that he finally ceded power here and said, we're moving on? And kind of take us through what you know about the timetable for when Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez officially get control.
Yeah, not clear on the timetable here. Obviously, that's got to be approved by the league. I'm not 100% certain when that's going to happen. But as for the timeline of, Glenn kind of dropping this, I guess, so to speak, nothing about this process has been expedient. So I'm not surprised it took 6 weeks for it to get to this point after the arbitration ruling, right? It's just been from the moment they signed the agreement 4 years ago to now, and the way that this all played out over a year, from when Glenn tried to cancel the sale. Like it's just the legalese, the way the legal system works, lawyers, all that stuff. Whenever lawyers are involved, stuff just takes time, right? So I'm not surprised it took this long. I'm also not surprised that ultimately there is no pathway for him to appeal it, or if there was, it would be very, very difficult. Our Jeff Day, who does a lot of court reporting for us at the Star Tribune, he did a great job breaking that down throughout the process, and just that the avenues for appeal, once there was a ruling, were going to be very limited no matter who ended up winning or losing. So, not surprised by that, just because that arbitration ruling was essentially it, and that decided the fate of this deal. So I think it's just formalities and lawyers, and that's why it just took 6 more weeks to get to this point.
How quickly, once it's all settled, do you think we will hear about the new arena plan or want for new arena?
I mean, it's coming, right? That's I don't know how soon they'll formally talk about it or what their specific plans are or kind of how they're going to go about that. But I think they've been waiting to explore this issue for a while. Ever since they came on board. So, that's going to come, and, obviously that's going to be a lengthy, complicated process that they're, local government's going to get involved and all that stuff, and we'll have to see how that all gets negotiated and where they want to build it and all those fun details. I don't have a timeline on when that's going to happen, but, it's going to come at some point.
You're in every NBA arena. I'm not asking you to just trash Target Center, but I think people. We just had this long conversation about Williams Arena. We've had it ongoing. The college basketball arena that was built in 1928 and updated in the 1990s. And I always tell people, I'm like, when they're criticizing me or questioning me about Williams, I said, well, I'm going to all these other arenas, and I got to say, they're all really nice, and they're all great fan experiences, and they've all been updated more. I said the same thing to people that kind of say, well, what's wrong with Target Center? I would say, you got to go to some other NBA places to kind of see what's going on right now. Would you agree with that assessment as a guy who's in every building? It's obviously fine. I don't think it's, the worst arena ever, but it is from a little bit of a different era before we really knew what we were doing in terms of building arenas.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, I think the renovations and walking around the concourse, it's fine. Like it's got a good look to it, and there are other arenas, in my opinion, that are worse than Target Center, especially on the aesthetics of it. Like if you go down to New Orleans, that arena is ick. And the Memphis isn't that great either, to be honest with you. Like there's plenty of arenas around the league that are just kind of substandard. I'm standing in Barclays Center right now, which is probably one of the nicest arenas in the league.
Right.
I will say just from a fan experience, and the layout of Target Center is one of the issues, right? It's the number of seats that are upper bowl seats versus lower bowl seats, and they have more upper bowl seats than they do lower bowl seats. So, when they build a new arena, or they want to reverse that ratio, because back in the 90s that was the thing to do, right? Was to have more of these upper bowl seats. But that has proven to be a mistake, essentially, and it's also one reason why the Wolves aren't able to maybe draw a ton of ticket revenue that way, because you just don't have the seating that other arenas have. So that's one of the issues as well, and one of the reasons why it's not, quote unquote modern arena, and one of the reasons why you kind of have to look at just the viability of it going forward, because just the way it's laid out seat wise is not really compatible with how the economics of the NBA work right now.
Last thing for Chris Hine, Star Tribune beat writer for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You can follow him at Christopher Hine on Twitter. We just spent about 10 minutes ago time talking about how you can't make any plans. We do have plans for you to join Dan in studio on Monday, April 14th. As the Wolves, we know they're going to be in the play-in, one way or the other, at least. They might be a top 6 seed. But we want to have you in studio because we're going to talk about your book on Anthony Edwards that you got to see some pretty cool cover art for in New York today, given that you are on the East Coast.
Yeah, my publisher, HarperCollins, is in New York, and I stopped by their office today, talked to some of the staff, meeting some of the staff for the first time that helped me work on the book, actually. And while we don't have the actual printed copies of the book, they printed up kind of like a mock cover for me, just so I could take some pictures with it in their offices. So I threw that up on Twitter. Very excited that this is coming. June 3rd is the official release date. It's available for pre-order pretty much everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy books. And we're hoping to really make a push, and thank you for having me on in a few weeks here. We're going to hopefully be running an excerpt from the book on the Star Tribune that same day. So we'll be able to talk about the excerpt that comes out. And I'm very excited for people to start seeing what's in this book. I spent, I tell people I blacked out over the summer, and 5 months later, there was a book written. That was kind of what the process was. And just very excited that the day is getting nearer and nearer, because I hope Timberwolves fans will love this book. It's half about Ant's life before the Timberwolves and half his life in the NBA as well. And hopefully I know there's some stories in there that people don't really know about him, or his upbringing, or his time with the Wolves. And I hope everybody enjoys kind of the stories and the anecdotes that you're going to hear about him along the way.
Yeah, really cool that you got to do that today. The pictures look awesome. And if you go to Chris's Twitter, you can find the link to pre-order. It's everywhere. And like he said, it comes out June 3rd. And we will hopefully have you in studio with Dan the Monday after the regular season ends. We'll know exactly where the Timberwolves are playing, who they're playing. We'll preview all of that, and then do a deep dive into the book as well. We're looking forward to that visit, and hope the Timberwolves cooperate so we can all handle that and just put that on the calendar. Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate that, and thanks for having me on today. Really appreciate it, Gardy.
Of course. Yep, enjoy the game tonight. That is Chris Hine from Brooklyn, tracking the Timberwolves as they are right now in the top 6. basically by percentage points and tiebreakers. There's 4 teams with 44 victories right now. 3 of those teams have 32 losses. We're not going to know anything about when they're going to play, who they're going to play, why they're going to play it until the last night of the regular season. That's how crazy the last 6 games are going to be. I'm here in San Antonio for Westwood One's Radio Row, our 12th trip down here. Mark Coyle, the athletic director from the Gophers, going to join me at the bottom of the hour. We've got a full day here tomorrow as well with a bunch of college basketball guests. We are brought to you by Marriott Bonvoy. You can take your game day rituals on the road with Marriott Bonvoy. Over 30 hotel brands for every kind of fan. Explore more at MarriottBonvoy.com/NCAA. Making Brett work today and doing a top 5 at 5. What do you have for us, Mr. Blakemore?
We'll have a Twins update. We'll make Kevin Fallness happy, and we'll get you caught up on some NFL news as well.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.